Good morning and welcome. First of all, um, I would like to say that this particular lecture is in conjunction with what's already been talked in class, um, except that in class things are going to be in more detail and we will have a Q&A, right? So we'll begin by talking about how culture, structure, and HR practices, which is human resource practices, must align with strategy. Why must we align everything to strategy? If you do not align everything with strategy, then your strategy will not be effective, right? Recall your strategy itself is aligned with your mission and vision and ethical values. So, what is culture? What is structure? What is HR? What is corporate culture? What's corporate structure? What is corporate HR, right? So, culture is basically your shared set of beliefs, what you and your corporation believes in, right? Then your corporate structure is essentially your organizational chart, right? It shows who reports to whom and who does what to some extent, right? Then your human resource practices or human resource management is how organizations manage their talents, right? So we'll go over how each one of these should align with your strategic execution, right? We speak about how we've already spoken about how mission and vision and ethical values inform strategy. For example, if you do not understand the mission and vision and ethics of the Allied forces during World War II, you may advise that parts of Germany be um, NUKED, right? That would be contrary to the mission of liberating the Jews of the concentration camps, and contrary to the vision of a prosperous Europe, and contrary to the ethical values of the Allied forces when it comes to Europe. Similarly, without a culture or set of beliefs that are aligned with your strategy and even its execution may be incorrect, right? And without a human resource structure or who does what and reports to whom being aligned with your strategy and even its execution may be faulty, right? The same goes with HR practices, right? So, to begin with, we will look at the example of ancient Greece, where there was a particular culture of or belief that you should not leave any man behind on the battlefield, right? This means that you will not use any strategy where you will leave the bodies of your soldiers or even endanger individual soldiers. This also means that you will not ask a soldier to sacrifice himself or themselves for the rest. This means that if one of your soldier, uh, uh, or it may mean that, but it doesn't have to necessarily because sometimes things like that do arise. This also means that if your soldier falls off in a modern context, if your soldier falls off a helicopter in a jungle, you will go back to get the soldier, even if you have to risk your own life for it. That is what culture and beliefs and values of a division or company of people can do to inform strategy and execution. Herein, you see this classic portrayal of the Greeks, um, who had this policy of not leaving the body of their most preeminent warriors on the battlefield, fighting with the Trojans for control of the body of Patroclus, a kin of Achilles during the Trojan War. So this was like a protracted battle where over the body of the dead Patroclus, who was mistaken for Achilles, and basically he ended up departing, and there was a conflict between them, and basically it had to do with the cultural values of the Greeks, and then the Trojans, of course, they were. Trying to hold Patroclus' body ransom, so there was a tussle. In the corporate world, we have the example of Southwest, which has a vision to be the most loved and efficient and most profitable airline. It also has a strategy of cost leadership. Basically, it wants to undercut competition by providing low-cost travel. So what does it do? Basically, it has a culture of frugality where it prints on both sides of the sheets of paper, and it does not use any paper clips, right? Um, when one paperclip would do. It does not use multiple paperclips. Of course, they use some paperclips somewhere. Um, Anyway, so their culture of frugality aligns with their strategy, which is cost leadership, right? Then comes your corporate structure. An example from like ancient Greece or the ancient world is when Xenophon and his 10,000 soldiers portrayed right here. They were stranded in Asia, fighting for their allies, and they were surrounded on all sides by their enemies who were trying to basically defeat them, disarm them, imprison them, and even murder them, right? So the Greeks adopted a square phalanx where what they did was they put the baggage animals and provisions and archers and slingers in the center, right in the center of this phalanx, right, and and this allowed the hoplites, who were heavily armed soldiers or infantrymen with pikes or spears, right, surrounding them to basically protect the interior corridor or the interior part of the phalanx. And this allowed them to move through parts of Asia and Asia Minor on their way to Greece effectively. And when they encountered narrow parts, like when they went from a large field to a narrow bridge or a narrow part, they restructured this square into a rectangle, right? Or into a thinner column, right? So here we see structure informing their strategy, which is the strategy or tactic is to safely, remove themselves with the least bit of conflict through Asia and into back to Greece, right? In the corporate world, we have Procter and Gamble. They have a strategy of growth through innovation and differentiation, and they want to provide services that are of superior quality, value, and improve the lives of customers now and for the foreseeable future, right? Their structure is basically how the structure informs their strategy of growth and innovation is they do it by differentiation, right? Which is they differentiate into several units, which each unit has their own CEO, right, with authority and over sales and products, and then they behave like startups with agility and speed, and they innovate, right? So much for structure. Now come human resource practices or human resource management and how that may influence your strategy, right? So basically, Agamemnon during the Trojan Wars wanted to win over the Trojans outside of Troy, but Achilles, the talent, the like, the god of war, basically was refusing to cooperate because Agamemnon was really not being very nice to him and to his soldiers and to his myrmidons. So basically, Agamemnon would send envoys to try to please Achilles and to appease him and to bring him back into the army so that the Greeks could win the siege war against the Trojans, right? In the corporate world, we have the example of Goldman Sachs. They have, their values are involved, having a people of Goldman Sachs who are set apart, right? Basically, they are just exemplary, excellent people. And their strategy is to develop, evaluate, and execute plans for new business growth and initiative across the firm. So they use their exceptionally talented people to bring about business growth, right? And how do they do that? They have a human resource practice which involves excellence, meaning they have rigorous hiring practices from the top schools, and they have excellent compensation and a corporate structure that basically supports the employees and mentors them, at least in the best departments, right? So coming to our conclusion, basically these three elements, organizational culture, human resource practices, organizational structure, all of them align to towards group and social processes, work attitudes and behaviors, and then towards overall performance. In conclusion, I hope you enjoyed this particular lecture, and I hope this was informative, and I hope this helps you in your effort to serve humankind. Thank you.